Let your emotional intelligence shine and refuse to be offended. Therapist Kristin Hodson says that refusing to take offense is a sign of emotional smarts. Choosing openness and curiosity instead of offensiveness gives you space to let go and really connect. I am so intrigued with this challenge. Kristin joining me to share what happens when you refuse to be offended. Great to see you, sister.
So nice to see you.
Just that sentence, like, what would happen if we refused to be offended? What do you think the ripple effects would be from that?
Well, you're basically saying I'm committed to staying engaged. I'm committed to exploring this with you and figuring it out. And usually when we take offense, it cuts off communication. Mm-hmm. It stops connection, and it's over.
It's the end point.
Yeah, there's very little places to go once you're offended.
Obviously, this timed with our election cycle and the political season, but beyond the obvious there, I just think of all the many ways women can and often fall victim to offense just in our everyday relationships, right? It feels bigger or it feels important to us, and someone else maybe didn't recognize the sensitivity or the care we put into that particular opinion or idea or execution. This could bubble up in a lot of different ways.
It can, and it's really, it shifts it from a personal attack, like what you're saying is I want to be heard, and so does the other person. And that when someone is really trying to share something, instead of being offended, it's really not about us. They're just really trying to say where they're coming from, because we all want to be understood. And me hearing where you're coming from doesn't then all of a sudden make my point invalid. They could all be in the room together.
I want to ask you about the EQ side of this. There was a quote that caught our eye. It said, one of the most beneficial traits in love and in life, be nearly impossible to offend. You say this does speak to this idea of kind of intelligent smarts, like emotional smarts.
Yeah, because it demonstrates and highlights your ability to be psychologically flexible, that you can really understand there is more than one way to see a situation and a circumstance, that it's not you've landed on the right way and it is your job to understand my way. There's some flexibility and openness to like, I hadn't considered that before. We may not agree, but I hadn't seen that, and it broadens my understanding of a conversation or a topic.
Let's talk about how to get to that place that you just so beautifully described. And the word that caught me by surprise in this was curiosity. You say if you can be a curious person, the offense melts away.
Well, because we're starting to want to know where a person's coming from instead of coming to quick conclusions. We can land on what someone's saying and that it means this about their character, or this is what they're saying, and conversation's over, instead of open-ended conversation questions of, where are you coming from? Tell me more. I want to understand. That's new to me. And if we get really flustered, it's being curious about like, what's coming up for me? What's this about? So it's curiosity on all fronts.
I found myself in a conversation with a friend last week, and she said something that I thought I knew what she meant, and it wasn't the kindest end point. That's what I thought.
Yes.
And instead of just jumping to that and going with that, I just said, now what made you say that? And that put her on her heels. Turns out I was right.
With such a good question.
However, it put her on her heels and having to defend that. And it boils down to, I guess, this curiosity. Like, if we just stay open and curious, maybe someone else has to answer for their own attack or their own comments.
And they may revise it. Sometimes we say these things out loud for the first time, and we hear ourselves say it, and we're like, that's not totally what I mean. Or the way you heard it, that's not what I meant. Let me revise it.
Let me try again.
And it allows you to keep figuring it out together in relationship.
Yes. You say that people who try to avoid offense, at least, they regulate their emotions well.
Yeah, because don't we all get flooded and flustered, and all of a sudden we start to talk faster, and we're like, and we're just launching back and forth. And you use that interesting word of defend. Suddenly we're feeling like it's an attack and a defense, instead of truly when we slow our speech down. And like you're nodding and you're like, and you're sitting here saying, you know, I'm okay. They're not trying to attack me. This conversation's hard. But just slowing our breath down and managing our emotions can move us to where we're not zoomed out of a conversation, offended, and gone.
So is the key then speed? If I want to operate from that steady emotional space, is speed one way to help get me there?
It can. That's one way physiologically we can take a deep breath and just
I'm going to be here.
And then continue the conversation.
Yeah. I also find in line with that, it seems silence can be your friend too. Like,
absolutely.
We're so afraid of the beat or the pause, but sometimes that's what people need to hear themselves or to at least absorb the conversation, the tone of the conversation.
And to regroup. It gives
Yes.
us a regrouping moment.
Yes. Okay, people who refuse to be offended practice healthy boundaries.
Yes. So it doesn't mean these conversations aren't hurtful, that you don't experience these hard emotions. Boundaries, there's that saying of boundaries, fences make good neighbors and friends. Boundaries aren't about regulating you. It's for me to say, you know what, I'm getting heated, I'm getting out of my grounded moment. Can we pause this conversation? Can we come back in 20 minutes? Can we revisit it tomorrow? Like, I'm out of my zone. So boundaries allow you to monitor where you are in the conversation, not about shutting another person down. And that's perfectly okay. We all hit our limits emotionally, all of us.
And as you said that, I thought, how wise, how controlled and how wise to be able to manage the situation like that. Talk to me, Kristin, about the connection between offense and empathy.
So empathy is really understanding a person is coming from lived experiences, their own background and their own context, and we are really trying to see things from their shoes. We're trying to step in and understand. We're seeking to understand. Again, it moves us out of being right and wrong to, I really want to understand where you're coming from. And so when we pull empathy into it, it humanizes them. It moves out of like the content and the topic necessarily into like, you're a human being that has feelings and thoughts about this.
Right.
Where are you coming from with it?
Right. Here's a shining characteristic that I think we all want to embody, and this is an interesting application of humility.
Yes.
Humility.
And I love humility because it really brings in, again, it moves us out of this, I am fully right and I need to defend it at all costs to like, I don't know everything. I really don't. And it leaves me open to learn new things, and it gives me respect for the person across from me. And when I blend, say, humility with curiosity, or I blend empathy with curiosity, it really serves to bridge build and foster connection, even if we disagree. If we shift from like, I need you to agree with me to, I'd love to connect with you and understand you more fully, we can navigate some of these conversations.
I love this so much, and I love that you've punched home so many of the traits and the characteristics that we want to be as women and we want to embody, and this is a good way to put them into practice. Refusing to be offended. I love it. Kristin, thank you again. Where can we get more from you?
You can go to thehealinggroup.com.
Nice job, sister. Thank you.
Thank you.